marriage is hard, but like once you reach the top, like it's all good. And then you said it symbolizes the temple, and I'm like, yep, that too, yep.
And you were promoted because you're a man.
Literally.
It's a rom-com. It's rivals to lovers.
That's right, yes.
We are stewards. We are mothers over every living thing.
It does look a little Pirates of the Caribbean-esque.
I love
that
it.
minute. Yeah, that
Definitely.
When you say women should be hidden and men should be presented, it sounds so sexist. But when you see it visually, it makes sense.
We're not just male and female by some accident of birth, and that it's a divine characteristic that we carry with us, and that the point of that is to use those powers together and use those skills and talents and natures together to reach an ultimate potential and become like our heavenly parents.
It's a woman attribute. It's not whether you have kids or not. It's you are literally a woman. You are the mother of all living.
All of the scriptural references used in this episode will be brought to you by scripturenotes.com. For a free trial to Scripture Notes, please visit the link in the description.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Ward Radio. We are the Women of Ward Radio. We have myself, Brittany the Shadow. Joining me in the studio, we have Brooke. And then via Zoom, we have Tikla and Rachel. And also joining us today is our very special guest. We have the Library of Godwin, Caleb himself, with his lovely wife, Imogen. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to dive right into feminine symbolism. And Tikla, you want to introduce more of what we're going to be talking about today?
Yes. Okay. So this is our first time having a man on Ward Radio Women.
Wow.
No, yes.
Let me take a
There we
moment.
go.
Really? Wow.
Kind of a big deal.
I feel very honored.
But we're specifically calling him in here to talk about feminine symbolism. So it's going to be good. It's going to be fun. I specifically have been a fan of Caleb's work, in part because I feel like you get feminine symbolism right.
Ooh.
And I've been so curious to know your process and how you came to how you portrayed the feminine in your artwork, and just dive into some of these ideas. And so with somebody who's clearly thought this through quite well. So we can dive right into some pieces of your art, unless you have anything you want to say right from the beginning here.
No, I'm very happy to be here. And yeah, I just study this. I've studied the tradition of Christian art over the centuries, and there's a lot of great stuff about feminine symbolism that goes into it, and I've liked trying to incorporate that into our Latter-day Saint theology.
Bro, you're missing the boat, dog. Yes, I give femininity right because I got the hottest wife on the planet. Score the points. These are low-hanging fruit. She's an English woman, and you do it right. Score the points, dog.
Cardin, though, you learn, Cardin, though, that the English women are a little bit more reserved, and so they don't like these displays as much.
Okay, sorry, Imogen.
A little bit more modest. They're a little bit more modest in their. Yeah.
Imogen, I apologize
But
for
Cardin
my
is right.
American husband. He's so loud.
That's how he feels on the inside. Cardin reflects how Godwin feels on the inside.
Yes. We wear our hearts on our sleeves, the Americans.
So before we even pick a piece of art, can you go into more detail about your study? I mean, what symbols more overall generally have you drawn upon for the feminine symbolism that you portray? Or we could go right to the art.
Yeah, well, if you look through Christian history, I think the feminine symbols have been there since the beginning, especially with the Catholic and Orthodox tradition. You get Mary is kind of the ultimate feminine symbol. And sometimes I think we dismiss that, and I understand why, because we don't agree necessarily on the theology of Mary and her role and her characteristics. But what I see in the art of Mary and in the worship of Mary or the veneration of Mary is an instinctual draw that the Catholics have to the divine feminine. And so that's what I think is really beautiful. So even though I think it's perhaps misplaced in the character of Mary, that instinct to honor the divine feminine is genuine, and it's beautiful, and it's something that I wanted to bring into our theology. So
Well, I would say we have more in common in our understanding of Mary than we do different.
Yes.
Like it's just a very slight difference in the way we would look up to her and think of her. And I also think it's interesting because I've seen in these ancient Christian traditions with Mary, it seems very much like we have Father, Mary, Son. Whereas in a lot of your art, you've got the two sides of masculine and feminine illustrating like more as equals,
Like
rather
Yeah.
than this kind of tell
And
tell
that
me
draws,
about that.
yeah, so that draws a lot on like the alchemical tradition. So in the 16th and 17th centuries, alchemy was a big thing in Europe, and it mixed with Christian mysticism in a very interesting way. But it was this understanding that these opposing forces, these dichotomies, you required both to achieve the ultimate creation. So the goal of alchemy chemically was to create gold out of different elements, but it's also about, spiritually, it's about reaching that ultimate divine potential. And so in alchemical art, you often had a male and a female counterpart, symbolically, artistically depicting different forces of nature, different chemicals, and how their unity is what brought about the ascension to the final work of alchemy. So that is where I draw, and then you bring that into Latter-day Saint theology, where we believe somewhat uniquely that men and women, we need each other to reach our divine potential. That unity is key to becoming like God.
So speaking of key, let's pull up your celestial marriage piece. I just love this. So we have here man and wife, and their hands are wrapped, and we have a key over an altar with a lamb. There's crowns. We've got these heavenly bodies. I mean, walk us through this a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Let's see where to start. So yeah, this piece, I wanted to capture kind of the theology of eternal marriage, as I was reflecting on my marriage and just kind of the beauty of that doctrine in the church. These symbols kind of presented themselves. So if we look, like you say, we've got a man and a woman standing on opposite sides of an altar. This is a familiar kind of scene for many of us, and they're going to grasp each other's hands. They're bound by this piece of fabric, which is kind of an ancient tradition with marriage, symbolizing a total unity of the man and his wife. And you've got the key there to represent the priesthood authority that binds them together, as a reminder that it's priesthood keys that seal things on earth and in heaven. They're standing on this sea of stars, which to me was a reminder of the Abrahamic promise that men and women, their prosperity would be like the stars of the heavens, and that's part of the marriage promise. And then,
wow. I didn't even notice that, but now that you said it, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I try to make sure everything on the page hopefully has some kind of meaning. And then, there's the altar with the lamb as a reminder that all of these ordinances, all of these covenants that help us on our path are possible because of Jesus Christ as the sacrificial lamb. And it's by that power that we can accomplish these things. And you have above the man and wife, you have the crowns. So they're foreordination to become king and queen together, unified. In the background, you have the mountain, which is the symbol of the temple. You have the dove flying above. In Doctrine and Covenants, it talks about that everything must be sealed by the Holy Spirit of promise. So that's why that is there. And then, directly above is the kingdom of heaven, the realm of God, the ultimate destination that we have access to through marriage. And then on each side, we've got these masculine and feminine symbols I can go into if you like.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
All right.
When
Yes,
you said
please.
like the mountain, I was like, before you said it symbolizes the temple, right? I was like, oh, like that's cool. Like he picked a mountain. Like marriage is hard, but like once you reach the top, like it's all good. And then you said it symbolizes the temple, and I'm like, yep, that too. Yep. Oh yeah, that would be really good.
Layers of meaning. There's always layers of meaning.
So I just thought this was so interesting that you have the presence of God, which is the sun-like symbol, but then you also have the sun on the side of the man and the moon on the side of the woman.
Yes.
And so this is fascinating to me. So I want to hear your process.
Yeah,
or
so
your thought here.
That is a very traditional motif. The sun as a masculine energy and the moon as the feminine energy, as kind of a counterbalance forces, the sun over the day and the moon over the night. And the characteristics of each kind of map onto the characteristics of men and women. The sun is aggressive, it's dominant, it's fiery. It provides warmth, but it can also scorch and destroy when not held back or restrained. And every day its energy is constant. Whereas the moon is kind of a counterbalance to that. The moon reflects light. It's a cooler energy. It's a softer energy. It's also traditionally a female symbol because of the idea of a moon being a monthly cycle of phases. And so every day the moon is a different stage of its phase. And so it's a bit more changing. And so that's where this idea, kind of like we were talking about with the alchemical tradition, that the sun and moon as these opposing forces work in unity.
I love that.
And provide that energy.
That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah.
This feels very Brittany.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm all
Right?
about the moon. Like, now I know why. It's 'cause
That's right.
Yep.
I cycle.
Yep. Well, and I've loved the idea that, the moon has its time of being present and visible and its time of being hidden away. And I know that is how life goes for me as a woman, where I have my times of invincibility and my times where I really need help. And sometimes that's on a monthly reason, just like the moon. And other times it's just the whole life season, right? We have our season of being visible and invincible and our season of vulnerability, just depending on what we're up to. Whereas a man's life is going to be a little bit more consistently the same. And so I just think that's super beautiful imagery there. So, well, maybe we'll talk more about this when we get to the Plan of Salvation one.
Yeah.
So I'll let you keep going on this.
Yeah, I think there's one more kind of element of symbolism in it, is behind each of them, you've got a different scene. So behind the man, you've got a field of wheat and his tools. And that's kind of a reminder that Adam was told when they were kicked out of the garden to go tend the earth and by the sweat of his brow to produce. And it's a reminder that the fundamental role of the man is to work, to labor, to provide, to take the chaos of nature, to turn it into order, to provide for his family. And on the other side, behind the woman, you've got the tree. And the tree is a great symbol of femininity. I think Dave Butler has talked a lot about the tree as an ancient symbol of the divine feminine with Asherah and these kinds of things. So the tree is interesting because the tree grows naturally of nature, but it gives of itself to those around it. So it gives its fruit, it gives its shade, it gives its leaves, and it grows in abundance. And I think that kind of maps onto the female experience, that women give of themselves, of their love and of their affection and of their nurturing to the ones that they love. And so I thought that was a good way to show the difference, the field and the man's tools and the tree.
I'm curious, what are they standing on? It looks to me like a galaxy or something.
Yeah, so that's the sea of stars that represent their posterity that will number the stars of the heavens. Yeah, as a reminder.
And then
It's
the
so
crown
interesting.
standing above them, like they're going to potentially have
King, yeah, to be a king and a queen together in eternity.
I was going to say, I think it's so interesting the way that art communicates a story in kind of a snapshot of a moment, and the way that you have the feminine and the masculine at almost the same exact height, almost the same, and their crowns look very similar, that there seems like there's this effort for you to create this kind of like equality of status. And we have like a very unique doctrine that way in like the belief in like Adam and Eve and Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother. I just think you did a really good job like communicating that. And I wonder what power you think art has to communicate the kind of unique messages of the restored gospel as you worked on this.
Yeah, I think it's like you say, a lot of times people will see my art and not quite understand all of the symbols that are in it. But my hope is that something resonates with them and that there's an impression, and that they can study it out and maybe find or discover these things for themselves over time is the hope. I'm glad you had that impression, because I did really want to show that, to me at least, the masculine and the feminine are completely equal in their dependence on each other for progression and for transcendence. And that is one of the beauties of the restored gospel, is that we understand that dichotomy and that opposing force.
What's interesting is, like, when I saw the painting, or the painting, I thought, when I saw the key, ironically, it didn't click for me that was priesthood. I actually thought access.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
we gain access to heaven in our theology with each other.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
exaltation is achieved with each other. But I just thought it was so beautiful that the key is so central. The hand clasping is it's a focal point in the.
Yeah, that's the great thing
image.
about symbols too, is they can have multiple meanings. And yeah, it's that we can access the blessings of heaven together, unified, held together, wrapped together, in covenant.
Also, Rachel, I'll edit this out if I have to, but I got to tell you that the access, that was not the access I was thinking to on wedding day. I'll be honest with you. I'll just be honest with you. Like, I mean,
not gonna
now
edit
that we're
this out. He's not going to edit this out.
If I have to, I will. If I have to, I will.
Well, it's not wrong. It's not wrong. I think
True,
women
yeah.
are stewards of access
Mm-hmm.
to an ordinance of the flesh, shall we say?
Yeah.
Which, okay, brings me to, I like to get into this kind of stuff, so you can bow out gracefully from this question if you want
Let's
to. But
go for it.
I feel like there's a little bit of a struggle. Maybe I think it's ongoing. Maybe it'll just always be a struggle. But there's a misunderstanding of feminine power, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a movement that's been going on for some time, even within the church, to push for women to have more masculine roles in the church, or for priesthood power to be, priesthood ordination perhaps to be extended to women, and things like this. So these kinds of, and I find myself often really turned off by some of the books or articles or musings of some of these women who are attempting to kind of like cram femininity into a masculine structure, rather than elevating and exploring and honoring femininity as it has been anciently, as it is understood, and as I see you doing it well through your symbolism. And so I thought it might be interesting to talk a little bit about patriarchal order and matriarchal order, as it were, and how I think the best way to explore it is through art, ultimately,
Sure, yeah.
because it will feel right when it's right. And I also think that the feminine is best explored through art, because there's something very feminine about art.
Yeah.
Any thoughts before I kind of give you some of my ideas?
No, I do think you're right, and I've seen a lot, especially I think in our age cohort, a lot of the women of the church in our age struggle with the kinds of things that you're talking about, of understanding the role and feeling like the answer to the status of men in society, but also in the church, is to try to join into that, like a zero-sum game, that if the men have it all, we need to divide it from them, instead of realizing that it might be a failure in that we've elevated men, but we failed to elevate women appropriately and their roles. And so, yeah, like you say, I hope that I can do that through art. But I also recognize that I don't know the female experience from my own place. So I try to make sure that I listen and I study and I try my best to understand it that way.
I love that you said that. I just do. And you said it so eloquently, that we've maybe failed to elevate women in a way that we should. And maybe that's why women are running around saying, can I bless? Can I do this? Can I have that?
Yeah.
Can I? And listeners already know how I feel about this subject, so I won't go into that any more than I already have. But I love that you are creating a space for women. And I wanted to point out the lady in your art looks a lot like
My
your lovely
wife.
wife.
Yes,
Imogen.
my muse. Yes.
Aw.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Forever in this book. So
Yeah, well, of course, especially with the eternal marriage, it was very much informed by, my experience with marriage and my relationship with Imogen, and how that's informed my vision of our future and our potential and everything that comes with the blessings of marriage.
And I got you right here, bro. Look at this. When I go from right to left,
hello.
and I got Imogen right there.
Hello.
Look at him. Look at him, Imogen.
Hello.
Look at him sideways.
Oh,
Oh, there we go.
I mean,
there
from
The
we go.
inspiration.
and from where I'm
Fitting
sitting,
image.
I'm like twins. Yeah. But does he look like you?
No, probably not. No, I
No?
kind of gave
Not
him
so
just
much?
dark curly hair.
Did you add a few more muscles on your artwork?
Oh, yeah. I always give
Superhero
maximum muscles.
vibes.
Yes. It can't be helped.
Okay.
So
Large-
what
Look at
would
that
you
large-
say?
the
And
large
this is
back.
maybe a question.
Oh.
Sorry.
No.
This is maybe a question for both of you. So what would you say to somebody who says something like, because I think there's something interesting here to delve into, and that is that people will say, well, men have the priesthood and women have motherhood. And there's kind of like some prickles that go up about that. Because, maybe fatherhood and motherhood are
Sure. Yeah.
the equal companions, and then priesthood and priestesshood would be these equals, right? And so I think there's some friction there where women go, okay, well, where's the priestesshood, or where is that element at play? And I've done my own thinking about this because I've struggled with this idea myself. And one of the things that I've come to learn through the sealing ordinance, actually, so this is really powerful, the way you've described, the way you've illustrated this, because we are sealed with the patriarchal order. We have the priests that are organized. We have the patriarchal order, which patriarchal means fatherhood.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the organization of fathers. So whether a man is a father or not, he's initiated into this order of fatherhood.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we could say that women are initiated into the order of motherhood, not by virtue of keys laid on hands in this hierarchical structure, but by nature. Nature initiates a woman into the order of womanhood. And this happens whether or not she's a mother, right? This takes place at about the same time that a man is initiated into the order of fatherhood.
Yeah.
And so then when we go to our sealing, or when we attend a sealing, we are not just ordered in the patriarchal order, but then we're then invited into the order of matrimony.
Mm.
So we're sealed in the holy order of matrimony, which matrimony means the order of mother,
Right.
or
yeah.
the motherhood, or to create a mother.
Mm.
So when we're married or sealed in the holy order of matrimony, we're actually being initiated into now an organized form of mother. So there was the organic, nature-induced order of mother. But then in marriage, there's a more formalized one that invites the man into the order of mother and says, this is the order for motherhood to take place, with a man who is presiding and carrying and protecting the woman who will enter into this state. And that will be the case whether she becomes a mother of children or not. She is in this holy order of becoming a mother by virtue of a union of man and woman. And so I think if we look at your illustration here, we have the male and the female, and we have the order of the sun above it. But then in the frame, or the arch, which is often a feminine, the frame can be a feminine
Yes.
principle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even in your tree, I don't know, what do we have here in the leaves above?
Yeah, it's I saw it actually in just an old English church, and originally this art didn't have the arch or the frame kind of around it, but I saw this in an old English church, and it felt right to put it in, so I took the design and put it in, because as you said, yes, that introduction of nature for the feminine side is a really important aspect of it. So yeah, you've got like these kinds of branches or leaves and things like that in there.
So it's almost like we have the veil of the clouds, which is a very feminine symbol, and we have the arch, which is a feminine symbol, and we have the nature, which is a feminine symbol. So it's almost like the patriarchal order that's encapsulated in the holy order of matrimony, like this mother energy that's around the entire thing, which often happens when we have something encircled ultimately by a circular frame,
Yes.
where we have this kind of like great mother outside of all of it
Yes.
that's taking place. So we kind of have these nesting ideas that we see with the Virgin Mary as well, this nested idea of masculine, feminine, masculine. But I think even outside of that, there is another feminine symbol. And so this is just something I've thought of.
No, that's really, yeah, that is very interesting. And what you said about, so tradition, this is going to kind of be like a Jordan Peterson type thing, sound like a Jordan Peterson
Bring
type
it
thing,
on.
but the masculine is represented in order. So the masculine energy is kind of what builds civilization and society and cities and order, rules, laws, things like this. But taken to its extreme, that order becomes like a totalitarian society where it's nothing but rules and structure and all of that. Whereas the feminine aspect is that of chaos, which isn't a negative term, but it's often used. But the chaos of nature is how we can kind of understand, because nature is chaotic. It doesn't have the geometric neatness of a city with roads and streets. It has its own order to it, but it appears chaotic. But from that chaos is creativity and innovation and compassion and love and all of these things. So it's that balance of order, the masculine energy, and in the church, I think that's why the administration of the church happens through a patriarchal order, the rules, kind of maintaining the society of the church, and then you balance that with the feminine aspect, which is all about the nurturing and the loving and the creativity and the nuance.
Yeah. Okay, I have a little card, and feel free to edit this out. I have a little tangent, a little nugget I want to throw out. So, I was reading some of the comments on a video that came out earlier, and one of them, they used a big word that I didn't know, so I Googled it, and it was like, don't assign human emotions to animals. And like someone was saying, like, that's the why, women who are cat owners shouldn't be called, cat moms or whatever it was, right?
Anthropomorphizing.
Yeah, what?
is
Yes,
what
That's
you're
it.
looking
that.
for.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, but I wanted to push back on that because put on your temple ears, as Tikla would say. It came to me where it was like, okay, in the temple, where it says we're taught that Eve is the mother of all living. It doesn't say all living human souls. There were no humans on the earth. So when God said, take care of this garden, he said, why are you calling her Eve? And he goes, because she's the mother of all living. And so I like that because it's like, that is creativity, that is feminism, that is nature. We are stewards, we are mothers over every living thing. Gardening, taking care of animals, kids, it's a woman attribute. It's not whether you have kids or not. It's you are literally a woman. You are the mother of all living.
So, okay, so many places to go here, but
Is there a river in the back, like beneath? Is there like behind the wheat and below the mount? Is there like
might
a
be.
river there,
Can't remember.
or in the painting?
I think it's just kind of the valley in the background.
Okay,
I don't think
okay.
there's anything. I think I've covered all the symbols in this one. I don't think I've
okay,
forgotten
well,
anything.
let's move to the planet of salvation, which hold everything.
Wow, look at that.
Oh wow!
This was a Christmas gift to me.
Aw.
Hilarious because my
Amazing.
husband and I both. Oh wait, no, that was your Book of Mormon. We both bought your Book of Mormon for each other
Oh,
without knowing
That's
that
sweet.
the other person had bought it. So that was a good time. But this was
gift of the
also
Magi.
for me.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I won't use mine because you can't see it as well as what you'll see on your screen. But what do we have here? This is too much. We can't go through all of it. So let's just go through some of the feminine elements, shall we?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, this is my map of the plan of salvation. It's the third rendition of it. I think I finally got it right. But as you might recognize, I I wanted to make it very explicit that the plan of salvation is also a map of the temple. And so that is what you're seeing here is
So cool.
a map of the temple, and it's structured loosely on the ancient temple and this idea of 3-part space. But yeah, you have Adam and Eve, man and woman, progressing together up through the temple, through the plan of salvation.
Okay, and you chose to use the book on her side. Is there any significance there?
I don't know if there's any significance there. I thought it probably made more sense to have the keys on the man's side. But the Word of God, I do think it's better told to me by the women in my life. I think of my mom telling me, teaching me the gospel as a kid, and the mother's voice. I think there's something special about that in teaching her children the words of God and raising them up that way. And so it felt appropriate to have that next to her.
That's beautiful.
Okay, I just have a general question. When you're creating like this artwork that's so detailed, in your mind, do you have it all laid out, or do you start with like one section, you go on the next, and you're like, wait, no, I got to go add this? Like, is it like
right?
That's
a good question.
Or are you just kind of like chaos, like feminism, just like throwing symbols out there left and right?
Like I said, this is the third. Yeah, this is the third version. So the other two, I didn't quite get it right, and so this was a kind of a trial and error, repeat, focus, learn more about the symbols, study more. And then I had the general outline, and then I worked on each section one at a time.
Okay.
And I did change or add symbols as I went along, as felt appropriate. Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you.
Well, I love in your Adam and Eve depiction, we have Adam who's standing very presented, and we have Eve who's veiled by her own hair.
Yeah.
I think that's so significant, and I think it's why these pictures feel so like such a good way to teach this, because when you say women should be hidden and men should be presented, it sounds so sexist. But when you see it visually, it makes sense. You realize, oh, right, that is what we want. Like,
yeah, it's natural. I think it just resonates naturally, and that's the kind of the beauty of art. And when I study old art, that is how Adam and Eve are often presented in terms of their stature and things like that. So I think the ancients, going back through the centuries, very well understood the intuitive difference between men and women, and were able to present that in the art.
It's a good thing
And
Eve
then
didn't have like shoulder length hair or something. That would have been
Yeah, no bob.
no bob for Eve.
Well, artistically, it helps.
Yes.
It's like those strategically placed plants in the Adam and Eve story.
That's right.
So, okay. And then I think it's interesting, these triangles you have. Tell us about the triangles. You have one inverted and one upward. Or
Yeah,
one
so
pointing
these
down.
are not quite mapped onto the masculine and feminine, but they are symbolic, and they're probably the one I get asked about the most. They're symbolic of the spirit world, because it is a bit hard to know how do you represent the spirit world. But there is, in the esoteric Christian tradition, there's this idea of as above, so below, kind of a dichotomy that everything has its opposite. And so you've got these two triangles, one pointing upwards, kind of directing one up towards heaven along their progression. That is paradise. And then you've got the arrow, the triangle pointed downwards, kind of directing one back down into that celestial state of existence. But if you map them over each other, they make that 6-pointed star. We often think of that as the Star of David. But traditionally in esoteric art, it also was this idea of opposites, as above, so below. And it's this idea, and so kind of the circle in the middle is the spirit realm. And the idea is that paradise and prison are not two separate places. They are just opposite states of being in the same realm, in that same spirit realm. So if you pulled those two pieces together, it would be a 6-pointed star with the circle in the center.
Oh, incredible. So cool. And I also think, well, so you use the pentagram on your Book of Mormon.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, there's
As a
piece in there.
symbol of Christ.
Mhm.
Is that also somewhat a feminine symbol?
I think yes. I'm not quite recalling everything, but if you study that symbol, it's an ancient symbol of Christ. that 5-pointed star represents kind of the morning star, son of the morning star, and also it was also used to depict the 5 wounds of Christ, the 2 in the hands and the feet, and then the 1 in his side. But I do believe that there is also an element of it that has the feminine aspect.
Perhaps just the duality happening there between the both sided stars, kind of like the opening down to comfort versus the opening up to worship, kind of like,
yes,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, so and then moving up, we have, I loved the scale that you have there for the same reasons that Rachel was talking about. This kind of like justice moment, but also having it between the man and woman just gives this sense of equality, this kind of
balance,
like, these are equal partners.
Yeah. And I think that is right. Kind of the balance of the 2 sides. They're depicted coming out of the grave together, resurrected together to be brought to judgment. So the scale represents judgment, but then the altar below is also the mercy. So the mercy of the sacrifice of the lamb coupled with the justice of God, the scales of justice, and that is what will present men and women before Christ when he opens the book of life. And that book of life reads the story of the man and the woman's life together, I think.
Taking this all in is actually kind of emotionally intense, truly, in some way, like, not giving away too much, but like when you are in the temple, sometimes you'll look at a symbol there and it just impacts you. And I have to admit, like, that book of life is pretty powerful. It's a pretty powerful image. It's intense.
Are you saying you're having an experience with his art? Because I agree. Like, it makes you just feel all the feels, like things that you already know, but then just looking at it, it's profound. It's like very impactful.
Makes it make sense in a whole new way.
Yeah.
It's funny how like words impact your mind and your intellect. They really do. They help you have aha moments. And it's funny how images have a way of doing that in an emotional way, like emotional aha moments, or clarity. I mean, I think what's really tremendous as well about your artwork is for you to have such a tremendous understanding of our gospel to be able to depict it in an image, especially because one of the things we talk about on our channel a lot is we are so lucky to have this sense, this kind of understanding of men and women and their unity together. And a couple of weeks ago, Tikla and I did a video where this kind of well-known expert keeps asking, like, why are the Mormons still having kids? Why are they still getting married? Like, what is the deal with them? And I just think there are members of our faith that they're kind of forgetting that makes us super unique. But your artwork really does capture the actual doctrine of what we believe. And was it intimidating for you to have to like make sure you got the belief and the doctrine kind of right in the images?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely try to be really careful that I'm getting it right and that I'm not because art is kind of this interesting thing where you can push things a little bit, explore ideas that maybe you can't in the mainstream or you can't in Sunday school. But I try to approach it all with reverence. I try to study everything out. I play off different symbols and ideas, and so I'm glad that it seems to have worked well to resonate.
Well, and the beautiful thing about art too is even if you did get something wrong and someone told you could be like, well, that's how you're interpreting it.
Yeah, you're just misinterpreting it. I had it totally right to begin with.
I'm like, sorry, look at it again.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's so true.
Well, and that's what's so fun about art is you get to push the limit a little bit to test out what works and what doesn't, and learn something true in the process. You're a scout, you're an explorer.
It's a fun process.
Okay, here's one thing. Has anyone ever told you, like with the skull and like the veil, it looks like a pirate ship?
It does look a little Pirates of the Caribbean-esque.
I love
that
it.
minute. Yeah, that
Definitely.
Well, okay, we're gonna go back down a minute because I forgot. The hands at the very bottom and the light inside.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so that was me trying to capture this idea of our premortal spirit, the intelligence, the small amount of, because intelligence is light and truth, that small light that we bring with ourselves into the world, with our premortal experience, as limited as it was, that there's something that we carried with us. And then you've got, God's hands kind of carrying that through that threshold, through the veil into life. And then it actually, in each section of the piece, God's hand is present. Just as a reminder, he's holding the keys in the book. He's above Christ, reaching down to bring us up through. It's just a reminder that God's hand is actually present with us in each stage. And he's been with us from the beginning as a small intelligence up until we are, divine beings like him.
Caleb, I love that. I didn't even think of that when now that's all I'm going to see. And I love that.
Well, and see, I'm a nerd here, and all I can see is this birth story happening right here,
Yes,
and the feminine elements of that arch and the veil, right, with the, the spark of life starting within a woman's womb.
Yeah.
It's like a womb. Yeah.
Yeah.
Womb.
Yes. Yeah. That was.
And the relation of the word womb and tomb, we have this like rebirth symbol too happening, right, where it's this, the woman contains, so she is chaos in symbolic terms, but she's also that which takes chaos and brings it into order.
Yeah.
So the man gives her chaos, and she then creates order out of that chaos and births a new life into the world. And then that which she created and made space for is made present and manifest in the masculine, symbolically.
Yeah.
Though, a child could be male or female. But so I just see this birth story, which is like,
that's definitely kind of the idea there. And I think that's also a cool part of the Christian artistic tradition, is because of their focus on Mary, there is a lot of the symbolic elements of the womb, and birth and the creation of life in that way.
Well, and also interesting, in the Relief Society seal and in the Young Women's emblem symbol, there it's a torch. At the very bottom of the Relief Society seal is a torch, and in the Young Women's has that torch with the face. And so I think I just thought a little bit of that in that kind of like birth feminine symbol there at the bottom, that there is that like spark of life and light. Yeah. And even the duality of Urim and Thummim, or Urim and Thummim, being light and perfections. I feel like there's kind of that duality there too.
Wait, is that the proper way to say it?
I mean, that's how the Jewish, in Judaism, that's how they say it. But
Chico, you teach me something every day. Yeah, I love it.
Dan McClellan debunking incoming.
Oh, okay. So what else? Degrees of glory. So I wanted to ask you about this because, you've got the sun and the moon as masculine and feminine, but I don't think the degrees of glory are necessarily saying masculine, feminine children per se. So go into that a little bit. What's your process with the symbols of the,
this is where symbolism can only take you so far, because there is a point where obviously the end of the temple is the celestial kingdom, so you don't find the terrestrial and telestial there. But I wanted to make sure this was also the plan of salvation was the focus. So in terms of the plan of salvation, that masculine and feminine with the sun and the moon, I would say it's just a separate symbolic using of those symbols.
Well, and because I went through my whole little journey with this, where I was thinking about the symbolism of woman and moon, and thinking, wait a minute, so we're symbolic of the telestial kingdom? Like, that's super lame. No, I don't like that at all.
I guess we really are lesser. Yeah.
No, exactly. I was like, that can't be right. I must be misunderstanding the symbolism of these chosen celestial bodies as representatives of these different spheres. And so as I explored it more and more and more, the Spirit taught me, no, this is completely different. And I think it's really, really interesting to apply these symbols to everyday life a little bit, where we have the symbol of the sun, which is, you have depicted so beautifully there with the Father over the sun and the man and woman together in the sun, in the light.
Yeah.
And that is the source of all light. That is the source of all life. And the moon is a source of light, but it's a reflection of light.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have any of its own light. It's only reflecting light. And I think in context of our everyday on this earth, I think there are so many traditions and things and endeavors and ways of being that have light. But the only light that they're giving is that which is reflective of or an imitation of the true source of light. And so when I think about, where is my light source? Am I turning towards the source of all light, God the Father and his Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost? Or am I turning towards a reflection of his light, something that is imitating him, but it's still something to aim for? And then there's the stars, because I was thinking, well, okay, every star is a sun. So couldn't the glory of the stars be even more suns? And then I realized, well, if you're aiming at the stars, you're
not
actually
aiming
aimless.
at anything. Yeah. Yeah.
There is no aim. So now you have no guiding principles. You're just doing whatever feels good in the moment. And so I suddenly had this picture of the degrees of glory as they play out in my own life, right? Sometimes I'm aimless. Sometimes I'm just going for whatever feels good at the moment. And I'm not really driven by my guiding sun. And other times I'm distracted by an imitation of his light. And then other times I am completely focused on the sun, his light. And that is celestial living. And anyway, that's been kind of a fun thing to think about.
Beautiful, yeah.
But I
Celestial.
agree that the symbolism of man and woman in that symbolic representation is not
relevant. Yeah.
That's not what it is.
And I just thought
Can
of
I-
something.
oh,
Oh,
yeah, go
sorry. You go, Rachel. You want to go?
Okay. I just wanted to say again that I think it's the image of the man and the woman together just is such a tremendous, it's such a tremendous, like, and it being so focal in the it just is so, it really highlights how unique our theology is, that heaven really is it's not an individualistic endeavor. Like, when you look at Christian art, it is usually a fairly individual, ascension towards God. Whereas this is extremely unique to see a man and a woman, they're on the same step. They're, completely, once again, like, they're completely equal status. They're unified, and they're in this kind of celebratory physical position where they're like celebrating together. And that really is such a beautiful image, and does just highlight how unique. I mean, you've seen a lot of Christian imagery. That's a pretty unique image, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, I think that is the beauty of our theology, is that the idea that we actually have a place to go beyond this life, that there is progression eternally, and the goal is to become like heavenly parents, but also that is a coordinated goal, that we're not just male and female by some accident of birth, and that it's a divine characteristic that we carry with us, and that the point of that is to use those powers together and use those skills and talents and natures together to reach an ultimate potential and become like our heavenly parents.
Another
are
beautiful.
there any like hidden or secret allusions to Heavenly Mother in here? Like,
Well, yeah. Well, the tree of
Are
life.
there? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the tree of life. Well, they're picking the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but the tree itself as a symbol, of Heavenly Mother. Again, Dave Butler's work on that has been really interesting to me, and I've been exploring it. I've thought about art about Heavenly Mother, but it's something that I am going to approach, I think, very carefully and reverently, and so I'm still studying it out and figuring out the best way to approach it.
Yeah. I was going to say another beautiful image back to like the 3 degrees of glory. I like how you depicted, obviously the Father is, encompassing the celestial kingdom, but you still show his hands reaching out to the telestial and the terrestrial, right? Like, it's not exclusive. He's still reaching out to them. Those are still his children. He's still encompassing them. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I think you're wise. I think you're wise in being cautious as you present Heavenly Mother, because
I've seen how it's been done,
That's a hot topic.
contemporaneously, and yet always just seems to miss the mark and to do something that I don't think is necessarily a service to that belief. So I'd like to be careful about that.
now, and I'm sure you're familiar with Jonathan Pajot.
Yeah.
maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think he has a really good explanation as to why it's so challenging to depict the divine feminine explicitly, because as soon as you bring her into a visible domain, she takes on masculine traits immediately. There's almost kind of like this, and this could be a whole nother podcast, but I think men are stewards over the, priesthood path on earth, but women seem to be almost like stewards of the ordinances of the flesh, or the domain, the inward domain, the kind of like the inward facing domain of life.
Yeah.
The things that are private, the things that are more vulnerable and are best done sacredly and not outwardly.
Veiled,
so,
you could say. Yeah.
I think. Good luck.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what I get to for that.
I'm really interested to find out, Imogen, if it caused any problems in your marriage with any of the stuff that he was working on, and which particular piece took the longest, and did it cause him to be on the couch at any point? I just want the juice. Like, I want to know all of it. Like, what's going on?
It is fun because I do get to see like the behind the scenes of all of it, firsthand see. But it hasn't caused any problems, as he clearly shows, equality. So we've got that part down. That's all right. It's not causing any problems. But he does spend a lot of time drawing on the couch. I honestly don't know how you make it. Takes you hours. A plug. I am his number one fan. It does take hours, and so I don't know how you find the time to do it. But yeah, favorite piece. I think you asked me that earlier. I don't have a favorite. I don't have a favorite piece, I don't think.
And which took the longest? And how many revisions? What did that look like? And were you just like, we're going to Disneyland, right?
I mean, there will be times, I feel bad because there will be times we'll like want to watch a show and he's like, I can't watch that one and draw. So I'm like, okay, fine, we'll pick a different one. Or like I just go to bed and he's just up late drawing. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I can't stay. I can't stay awake. You just have to go make time for it. Remind me your question. There's just it's too many.
I want to know, is he sending you to Disneyland? Are you guys going on a Hawaii trip or something?
We
came here.
Yeah, we came here. I mean,
hey,
I can't complain. Yeah. I think, like you said already, the Plan of Salvation, that's your third rendition, revision. That one I think probably took the longest from what I can see. You can correct me on that.
Yeah.
But a lot of them take hours. All of the ones that he did for the Book of Mormon take a long time as well. He spends hours on that. But I think a couple of the commissioned pieces usually take the longest as well, just because he's doing it for someone specifically and doesn't want to get it wrong. And obviously you put thought into all of the pieces that you do, but when it's for someone else, it's not just you doing it for you. I think that takes you longer as well.
Yeah.
You could correct me on that, but.
And what would you say your equivalent is to his art as far as your own process spiritually? Like, how do you process spiritual concepts? Like, what's your way of connecting spiritually?
That is a great question. His art definitely does help me process, because like you were saying earlier, that sometimes words give us impressions in certain ways, and art reaches just other parts of our understanding that words can't. And so his art has definitely helped me do that. And I think things that don't, like, I'll have a hard time reading it. It doesn't make sense reading it from words. But then when you actually see it visually and see how all of the different components come together, like there is a lot of symbolism within our religion, within our church, with it. I mean, building, everywhere. So seeing that, I'm quite a visual person. So seeing that visually in a way that shows things put on top of each other for me helps a lot, because I think sometimes, like you're saying, symbolism, it looks a certain way, but then when you look into it deeper, you realize how much more it is and how much more goes into that and how many different layers there are. And so sometimes that's hard to get, like, from words. Music helps. Music is a big way that helps for me as well, but definitely art and seeing it and just seeing how he can read it and it makes sense to him reading it through words, and then he makes sense of that in his brain and puts it in an image that makes sense to everyone, but also each person understands like things differently. Like the key and the one we were talking about earlier, yes, sure, represents the priesthood, but I think I didn't necessarily originally think that when I saw it, like just having those own interpretations.
That's awesome. Well, and I'm all curious about your own spiritual journey. Were you raised in the church? Did you join the church? You were
Yeah,
raised
so
in the church?
I grew up in the church. All of my 4 grandparents are converts, and then both my parents were raised in the church and then raised me in the church as well. So yeah. Lucky
And then you
enough
met
to
at
be raised-
BYU.
We did. We met at
Yes,
BYU.
classic.
I know. I always swore that would never be mean. That would never be like my. I'm
We
such
all
a
did.
stereotype.
We all
Yeah.
did.
Yeah,
It's even worse.
Y'all
Such
wanna
an
be
American
different.
stereotype, but that's okay. I do joke though that I had graduated from BYU in the April and we got married in the December. So I was like, I had already finished by the time we got married. Not while we were at
So it
BYU.
wasn't a
at
BYU
least.
marriage.
Yeah, it wasn't BYU. We may have met at BYU, but I got married afterwards at least. I got my degree first.
And where did you meet? You met at work. Where were you working?
We worked at the BYU bindery, where they make all of the
Yep.
Preach My Gospels and hymn books and all the great
And they
books.
do a lot
so
by hand, putting those spirals through all the books. It's really
it's done by hand, those spirals in the books. So yeah, next time you
And as you can
crack them
imagine, it's a
open.
really exciting job. And they ban
Lots of time to
headphones.
talk and
And
stare at
so,
each other.
Yeah, we just stared at each other across the table, got chatting, and we're friends, and then more than friends, and
There you
rest
go.
is
The rest is history.
Yeah.
Come on. He just wanted you to talk to him. Like, hey,
That is
could
true.
you, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Can you say that again?
We joke because to my parents originally, what they'd heard about him was the guy that took my job, took my promotion at work.
Oh, no.
I was so mad.
I didn't ask for the promotion. I didn't
Which
ask for
makes
the
it even
promotion.
worse.
Yeah, I know.
And you were promoted because you're a man.
Literally.
There's a
No,
chance
it's a
that-
rom-com. It's rivals to lovers.
That's right. Yes.
It's
Rivals
a
to lovers.
rom-com.
Oh, you guys are so great.
It was such a cliche
Thank
too.
you
Like
so
certain
much.
machines I was using would break, and then he'd have to come over and fix them, and it just made it look like I was deliberately making it not work. So, such a cliche.
Damsel in.
But did you ever break a machine just to talk to him?
No.
Oh yeah, of course.
No, absolutely not.
She did.
Absolutely not.
The secret stay with me, honey. I know what you did.
Uh,
Oh
And
my
it
gosh,
worked.
it's so cute.
You got that right.
That's right.
I need to, you know what? Can I take some notes? Like, so you
Yeah.
said what, when,
yeah.
how did that work? Maybe it could work for me. I don't know.
You got to work in a bookshop, Brooke. That's
Oh,
the next
Work
step.
a really boring job. where
That would be
there's nothing
crazy.
to do
Brooke
but
in the
talk.
bookshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say that fast 5 times.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been so fun.
Yeah.
Thank you both for being here. Is there any final words you would want to say specifically on feminine symbolism? We've got, I'm sure, more episodes to do with you and lots we want to hear about from you. But specific to this episode, any more on femininity that you think would be pertinent?
I don't know. I just there's so many women in my life who have been so important to me spiritually. So it is very rewarding to study and to understand and to see the beauty to the divine feminine that is within the women of the church and the women of the world, and how it affects my life. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful that I get to explore that through art and through symbolism, and I hope that I can do it justice.
So far, so good.
Good on you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
yeah.
thank you all for watching. For this and more, go to wardradio.com. And until next time, go give them heaven.